Hey everybody, did a little project on a 93 GMC Sierra today. It's a 1-ton pickup, 350 motor, 5.7 V8 that is. Needs a new hydro boost, which is this unit right here between the brake master cylinder and the firewall. A hydro boost is normal used in diesel trucks or some older vehicles, you know. Chevy used it on heavy duty pickups for a while. It's a little different from the typical power brake booster, which is like the big drum looking thing attached to a firewall here normally. That's used in modern cars, most cars nowadays. And the difference is that it operates getting the pressure from the power steering system versus the vacuum from the intake manifold like the power boosters do. So the first thing to do is, after you park the vehicle, turn the engine off, pump the brake pedal 4 to 5 times with the engine off to deplete the accumulator inside this unit, and then mark the lines. And on this one I'm gonna probably go 1, 2, and 3. So 1, 2 will be on the driver's side, and then 3 on the passenger side. So once those are marked, you want to disconnect them, and on this one, the power steering return hose, they use the crimping type clamp, so I'm going to have to cut that or break it and remove it, and then put a new one on later. Or I can probably just use a spring clamp, which should be fine. And in this case, some of these, as you can see here, some of these power steering pressure hoses are leaking, so I'll need to replace those too. But for the purposes of this video, we'll just stick to the hydro boost and mark the lines and everything. So just using a pair of needle nose pliers, I was able to loosen this thing enough to slide it up that little section of the rubber hose. So I just need to pry this thing off the hydro boost. So this one actually slid right off the thing, just with not a lot of effort. Not too bad for a 20-plus-year-old truck. So then I'm going to use one of these wrenches here. You can use a standard wrench, but since I have one of these, might as well just use that. Looks like it's a 5/8, so I'm going to use that one to loosen these nuts. So this nut is out, as you can see, and get this line out of there. Keep in mind there's going to be a little bit of power steering fluid leaking, so you might want to consider covering the floor underneath, like I did with a piece of plastic. So one more hose to go. So this one on the other side seems to, excuse me, to be a bigger nut, and it wasn't 5/8 for sure. I couldn't fit an 11/16 wrench over it. The only one that fit was an 18mm. It was nice and snug, and that was the best size wrench I was able to use on that one. I was kind of surprised about that, but it was metric. So there goes the last one. So the last pressure hose is out, and I'm gonna remove them from this little holder plastic guide here, as you can see. Get them out of the way. Hopefully you can see all that. And now it's time to remove the master cylinder. It's attached to the hydro boost with two nuts right here and back here, so 2 of them. I'm probably gonna have to secure the master cylinder out of the way, because it doesn't seem to be supported with anything. It seems to be sitting on just attached to the hydro boost, so I'll probably need to tie it to something so I don't damage any of those little brake lines. So this seems to be a 15mm. These are 15mm nuts. Just kind of surprised with all the metric sizes on this truck, being a GM. Well, just as I suspected, this master cylinder's only support is the actual hydro boost. It's just the 2 nuts that were removed, so this is what I came up with to support it. If you can think of something better, go for it, but it's not a lot of options here. So it's hanging off these bungee ties, and now it's time to get under the dash on the inside and remove the 4 nuts that are holding the hydro boost to the firewall from the inside. By the way, I should mention, a question is probably going to come up, that there is no gaskets or anything or any seals between the 2 units. Let me shine the light in there. You can see there's a little bit of power steering fluid oozing out of the hydro boost, and I would attribute that to the leaky seal inside the unit. The leak that I could see, before even taking it apart. So these are sealed units. I mean, this one operates on, hydro boost operates on power steering fluid, and then brake master cylinder obviously has a brake fluid inside of it. So there is no intermixing between the 2. So there you shouldn't see any gaskets or anything. So I'm under the dash by the brake pedal. First thing you want to do is, hopefully you can see that kind of a tight squeeze there. The rod that comes out of the hydro boost is attached to the brake pedal. I see there's a little, it's like a piece of foam material there. And on the other side of that, I had to reposition the light so you could see better. So if you pull it back a little, you'll see a clip that's holding that hydro boost rod to the brake pedal. It appears a kind of clip where you'd have to pry the top part and slide it. That part right there, slide it right off. Well, I'm gonna try that. So I was able to remove that clip just like I thought, by prying this part out. This top part. Pretty simple. So to show you guys what I'm doing up here, using a 15mm deep socket on these nuts. There's 4 of them. As you can see, there's some old material that's falling apart. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1 kind of hard to get to behind the steering column there. So they actually weren't as tight as I expected them to be, so they're coming out pretty easy. Just kind of tight squeeze and kind of pain in the butt, but not too bad. So you're gonna have to be patient when you're doing this, because there's only so much space to move the wrench, and this takes a while. And those studs appear to have thread locker on them too, so you can't just grab the nut and turn them by hand. You have to do it with the wrench. It's kind of tight. So and I had to tear off part of this insulation material that was all disintegrated anyway. The truck is so old, so it doesn't make a big difference there. Anyway, so this is gonna take a little bit, but it's doable. So before I remove the last 2 nuts, I'm gonna take out this foam washer thing again. Try to remove this connection here, the rod off the brake pedal. Hopefully you can see that. I'm trying to pry it off with a screwdriver. There we go. Since I'm working by myself here, and the hydro boost is about to be completely unscrewed, I'm gonna use another bungee cord, and secure it to something so it doesn't just fall out once I remove the last nut, because this thing is actually heavier than you would think. I don't want it falling down on those brake lines and stuff like that. Okay, so the last nut is almost out. At the very end, you can actually be able to spin it by hand. There we go. Time to take out the hydro booster. Well, let's see. Hopefully I can do this with one hand. There we go. Maybe not. Put the camera down for a minute. Go. It is now out. Time to put the new one in. So here's the new unit. Comes with new little O-rings and stuff. You do want to use those. So you can actually rebuild these things because the parts that leak are just basically the rubber seals inside. And I looked online and did actually find a rebuild kit right away. And quite honestly, I want to deal with it. And I found this thing online at AutoZone.com for like, I think it was like $100 on sale, you know, 20% off or whatever. So it's easier to just replace it, and you definitely do want to hang on to your old one because the core charge on this thing was like $60 or $80. So installation is obviously reverse of removal. I just put this new one back in. I'm gonna go get back under the dash and put the install the nuts, and the repair manual on this says to tighten those nuts on the inside to 22 foot-pounds, torque them at 22 foot-pounds. So I'm going to tighten the top nuts first. It seems like it would pull it into the desired position, and then tighten the bottom ones. And when it's all done, I'll attach the push rod. And, you know, I could probably get an air ratchet in here if I wanted to, but I just feel too lazy to crank up my big air compressor, and plus it's going to be real noisy, so I'll just do it by hand. So I got the top two nuts somewhat snug. I'm going to put this thing back on. Slide that foam washer back on. Sorry, the camera's kind of shaky. It's really a bit of a tight squeeze here. And at the end, I want to, hopefully you can see that. I'm going to put that cleat back on, just like so. Okay, and I'm going to tighten the bottom two nuts and then torque it. Okay, time to torque the nuts. Love how nice and shiny that thing is. The new Hydro Boost. Not that this old truck here is anyway, but it looks good. So I got the torque wrench set at 22 foot-pounds. I'm just gonna torque them all. Okay, got them all at 22 foot-pounds. Okay, these are all done. I already did them just for the sake of time. So anyway, this completes operation under dash. Let's get it back into the hose compartment. Okay, so I put the new unit in, attached the master brake cylinder. I'm gonna put these nuts back on. The repair manual I looked in did not have any torque specs for these nuts, but I'm just gonna make them nice and snug like they were before, and then it'll be the time to attach the pressure hoses. So the master cylinder is now attached to the Hydro Boost. Normally I would be attaching the pressure hoses to the new Hydro Boost and then bleeding the system, but in this case, I'm not sure if you're going to have to do this on your project or not, but in my case this is an old truck, and as you can see, all these pressure lines are leaking too, so I'm going to go ahead and replace those. It's a pretty self-explanatory one. The power steering return hose attaches to the power steering fluid reservoir. Another one of those crimp type clamps I'm going to have to remove and replace. And then the other two hoses, one goes, it's kind of hard to see, down to the back of the same reservoir, and then the third one down to the steering gear. So I'm going to replace all three, and then it'll be time to bleed the power steering system. So just to show you guys how I attach the hose, this power steering return hose, to the power booster, I figured I'd since I have this crimpers and the crimping tool, might as well go ahead and use that because that's what the manufacturer used. And those look like this, and this is the kind of tool it would need. But if I didn't have that, I'm actually using, I've used that for plumbing before, for PEX lines. But anyway, if I didn't have that, I would probably end up using one of these spring clamps. That should probably work. And if if that leaks, you can always replace that with a crimp type clamp later. All the pressure hoses are now attached, and I was just gonna start the truck and bleed the system that way, but the repair manual says you have to jack up the front of the truck, disconnect the battery lead from the distributor, thus disabling the ignition system, and jack up the front of the truck, turn the wheels all the way to the left, and then crank the engine for a few seconds. And before you do all that, you're supposed to fill up the power steering reservoir to the top. And then after all that procedure is done, you'll need to add some fluid to it. So let's try that. So back at the distributor, hopefully you can see that. I'm going to disconnect that center wire. There we go. So I turn the steering wheel all the way to the left, and let's crank it for a few seconds. Sounds like I need a new battery too. That should do it. So after I cranked the engine, like you guys saw, I reconnected the battery lead to the distributor, lowered the truck, started it, and ran it for a couple of minutes. No leaks anywhere, thank God. And then after I cranked it for a few seconds, the power steering level went down just a little bit, and then it went down some more after I ran it. So I had to add just a smidgen, but I'll check it again in a day or two and add it as needed. So seems like the brake pedal feels fine, and looks like I have power steering. So if there's any more air trapped in the system, I'm sure it'll bleed its way out. And if we need to add some more fluid in a day or two, I will do that. Anyway, hopefully this helped you guys, those of you who like to do things yourselves, and thanks for watching.